Ladies and gentlemen, kids of all ages, it is Wednesday. It is time once again for the Mattriarchy, which, as of recent weeks, has been your in depth train ride through the new Superman, which next week is the last one, and we're completely caught up. So, if you're one of those people who are tuning in to the replay for the first 5 minutes to see if we're still talking about Superman, yes. But stick around because this issue, man, it's interesting. It's interesting. I am still not convinced what I think about it, to be completely honest. I enjoyed the heck out of it, but it left me saying, "What?"
What? That happened.
I am joined, of course, by our super stalwarts, Twitless, and
Hello.
the Hutch. For you lousy kids. So before we get into it, just general thoughts, impressions. Are you as confounded at your own reaction as I am, or what do you guys think on that?
Twitless, you go first.
Well, I was actually what I wanted to start with is I have an answer to. I don't think it's a satisfactory answer, but I do have, I think, an answer to Hutch's chronic plaguing problem with DC continuity. So I was looking at some comments, some discussion comments, and someone was referring to this very issue and saying, what's going on with the continuity here, specifically regarding one of the villains who shows up. And what was brought up is that I think at the end of Death Metal, which was a big intercompany crossover, the continuity kind of got explodified in a way that I think it allows for everything and anything to be canon if the writer wants it to be.
Yes, that's right. What were they calling that? There was a name for that.
Hypertime, way back when it was called Hypertime. But
but with Death Metal, I remember hearing about that. There was a different thing where it's called it's something else.
Basically, the characters can remember anything from any of the continuities because it's all technically happened, or kind of thing. So I think that's what allows, and that's at least concurrent with some of the spreads that we've seen that basically show all of those different memories of like either Lex or Brainiac, and even if they don't reconcile individually with each other, it's like, this is what Williamson is pulling from. This is what he wants you to know for the backgrounds of those characters when he mentions it. So it's not going to line up to a longtime reader's like. So if you're a super continuity hound, it's probably going to be really frustrating. Yeah. If you are less connected to some of that, it's probably going to be like, okay, I'm all right with it. But that's kind of like, so I like I said, I don't think it's a satisfactory answer, but that is the answer that I think some people that I think certain DC writers are at least running with.
Yeah, and I remember they were talking about it with that story of the three Jokers as being one of those things where each of the three Jokers have conflicting continuities, and yet we as the readers are just so to believe that they coexist for the sake of the story. And I
haven't read the Three Jokers either. So.
I haven't either. I heard I think it was on Thinking Critical's channel that they were talking about it like 2 or 3 years ago.
See, I don't have a problem with we're going to ignore the environmentalist take on. Can I say his name, the villain's name, or do we have to wait till we get to him? The environmentalist take on him. Then he's riding a robot, and then Black Adam kills him, and then but that was before Rebirth. So he's back, and he's back in a way that we haven't seen him since DC Comics Presents with Blue Devil. So yeah, that was his last appearance. His Bronze Age, basically, or slightly Edge of Crisis. Edge.
Right on the borders.
On the border, and it's also hearkening back to the Justice League animated series take on the character. So it's kind of a mix of Bronze Age and that, and I'm fine with that because that's what I like. So seriously,
All right.
I think I like the character more than the average person.
Okay, then
And I'll say nothing more until we get to him.
We're gonna have fun digging into this. Now, before we get any farther, though, I want to go back up. I want to spoil the end of the last issue.
Sure.
Do you have that? Anybody have those screenshots pulled up?
Hi, Cartoonicus. Cartoonicus joined us, and we didn't say hi. So.
Stay tuned.
That's true. We did not say hi. I'm a horrible host. I'm sorry.
I'm going to say that the cover for this issue is a spoiler enough.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, okay, that's fine. We'll get into it. The end of the last issue.
Yeah.
There's a big flash, and Superman disappears.
And so does Marilyn Moonlight.
And so does Marilyn Moonlight. They both Moonlight. They both disappear.
Marilyn Moon Knight. I've been saying Marilyn Moonglow. All of it. It all works.
It's all whatever it is. Yeah. Marilyn Moonlight disappears, and then for all of a sudden, it's the Old West. And here's this train rolling through, and they're talking about going to Metropolis, and it's obviously the American Southwest. There's mesas and red clay and sand in the background. It's absolutely the land of enchantment, and you cannot convince me otherwise. We're looking to the painted desert. Anyway, point is...
I thought Metropolis was in Kansas.
Yeah. No. Okay. Move on. Let's just get this back.
I don't think it's ever... Yeah, it's not...
On the train, there's an old woman and two little kids, and there is Hannibal Hawks, Nighthawk, and Cinnamon. And I said when we were talking backstage last week, I that moment in that panel, I loved it for that panel, because I absolutely loved what they did with the last Hawkman series, where they integrated the past lives and the idea that Hawkman and Shiara Hall have been reincarnating, and that we've met them without knowing that they were the reincarnations. So the Silent Knight and Hannibal Hawks were both incarnations of Carter Hall. I just loved that idea to the end. And so here they are combining Cinnamon and Nighthawk in a way that kind of showcases this. And they're hired by this old woman to go up to the top of the train, and they run into Superman dressed like a cowboy. And I says, what? And that feeling has carried me through the last week, because I'm still not sure what I think about all of that. So we have in this here the man of yesterday, Superman, finds himself trapped in the Old West. And here's where it gets crazy, right? Because I don't know, should we go off on the geography thing before we talk about the comic? Since Cartoonicus brought it up there.
I think we need to mention that there's no way. I mean, I know they tried to do that in the Smallville TV show, but there's no way that Metropolis is in Kansas, because it has an ocean front.
It's got a waterfront. I was about to say that.
And the Missouri River runs through Kansas City, but Missouri River is not oceanfront.
Yeah.
Right. Even if you were to say, oh no, it's on the other side of Missouri, and so you've got Smallville in Kansas, and Metropolis is over in Missouri on the Mississippi River. No, you don't.
Okay.
Spiritually speaking, and like I said, there are DC writers who have said this, is that Metropolis is New York by day, Gotham is New York at night. Yeah. So even if it's not technically New York,
it's meant in American Southwest either.
It's meant to be a.
But in the DC Atlas, okay, it's Metropolis is in Delaware. It's on the opposite side of the bay from Atlantic City and Gotham City in New Jersey.
You're telling me that Twin Cities?
It's northeast. Yeah, we're talking about
it's northeast.
Yeah, so it's not New York, but basically it's a northeast.
Yeah.
You're telling me Superman and Batman have been right next door to each other all this time, and they never.
They've been across. They've always been. I mean, like there was a World's Finest miniseries that I can't remember his name right now. Wrote, the guy who did the art for Watchmen, Dave Gibbons, wrote this World's Finest miniseries, and half of the story takes place around the town of Midway, which is around the hook between the two towns. Before there was bridges across it, you'd go around between the two towns, and right around the hook is this little town of Midway, and that's where the orphanage was. That's what an orphanage was.
Right.
So that's the thing is, so New York is, Metropolis is supposed to be East Coast, and until the 80s, the Smallville was just upstate someplace, right, away from there. There's farm country out in the sticks. So
to be fair, I would argue that when it comes to pinning down the geographic locations of DC cities, it's often been very imprecise. Like Marvel, it was very clear. This was New York, and then when the Avengers also had the LA, it was very clearly these were firm geographic locations. Depending on who's writing it and such, it was much more ethereal, and it was not easy to pin down. There were moments where I assumed that Smallville was like Midwest, and I think that there's an argument you probably make for that. Right. I think that vaguely speaking, as Hutch said, Metropolis had a waterfront, which put it coastal, and the general implication was that it was East Coast. And I think Gotham had something similar, but as long as you could just go, it's on the East Coast somewhere, you were good to go.
Right. It was on the East Coast. They had the food was all East Coast food, was seafood and pizzas and all that kind of stuff. There weren't slaughterhouses in town. There weren't all of the things that Midwest cities have. There wasn't.
Could be Chicago.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, you could have Chicago, but then you'd have slaughterhouses everywhere, right?
You would,
and lots of messes of highway.
Yeah.
It's very obviously supposed to be a stand-in for New York. But I've always heard is that Gotham is New Jersey.
There you go. In this story, what they really, 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 really want is to have, an Old West story with Superman.
So this is where I need to pull this up here.
Right. This is the thing. Yeah. There is no place east of the Mississippi River that looks like this.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anywhere.
Well,
there's a couple places around. There's a couple places in Colorado that look like this. There are a couple of places in even Nebraska.
Right,
this is yellow for Nebraska. There. I mean, this is the Southwest.
If we give some artistic license, I'm willing to say that this is West, Northwest, Midwest. That's okay. I'm not saying it's technically. I mean, I know we could. I would buy this as the West. I think the problem is the fact that if the general understanding is that Metropolis has an ocean front, we have a problem because this picture is nowhere near the ocean. So no matter if we're being super generous with just like, oh, this is a Western setting, West means in the middle of the country, which puts Metropolis in a really weird spot, which means that Williamson's trying to have his cake and eat it too. He wants a Western story, but wants the crux of the problem that Rhys is alluding to for our audience is the fact that this story is directly tied to the history of Metropolis specifically. The whole pitch of this adventure is we are seeing a Metropolis of the past. And that is a critical plot point because of Marilyn Monroe's history with Metropolis. So that's the geographic that's the geography hiccup we're having.
Can we go back to the cover for a second?
And I have to explain why I'm having such a conniption fit about this, right? Is because one of the things that drew me into the DC comics back in the early 90s was this fictional geography and the history of the cities and how Gotham seemed like a place you could visit and all of these things they put in there. And I loved that idea. And back when I started writing for Fanzine, when Hutch was my editor, I did a whole series of DCU travel guides where I worked with another researcher, John Wells, and we mapped out these geographic and tourist locations in these DC cities, and I'd write up these travel logs as though you were reading a travel magazine suggesting that you go visit Hub City or don't, because it's not that great a place to be. Or, you know,
And,
wherever.
and Metropolis and Gotham have a history that goes back to the 1600s. So there's no way that this little barren spot out in the West is Metropolis. I go back to what I said last week, that the railway is named Metropolis, and maybe that's all, but I don't think it's implied that this is, until later they time travel forward, and without like moving their feet, they're suddenly back in Metropolis, as though it's sprouted from where they are. So I don't know what to make of it. It's
Well, I want to know about this going back to the 1600s, when like that should put them before any settlers in the U.S.
Well, the settler. I mean, the Plymouth colony got there at 1619. I mean, 1620.
But I mean, whenever the
Jamestown is 1610. You're okay in the 1600s. That's when they all start.
Late 1600s, 1700s. But I remember them talking about like one of the founding fathers was like at the Daily Planet or something. I remember they did the history of the Daily Planet where they were like doing a tour, and Lois Lane, like a little young Lois Lane, is there, and she's talking about like Alexander Hamilton was at the founding of the planet, at the Daily Planet's founding or something like that. It's I'm just saying, 1880s, there was more than just a little shanty town, as Metropolis. So there's no way that where this takes place is supposed to be Metropolis. It just doesn't work.
Can we go back to the cover for a second?
Yeah.
What for?
What's on the cover?
I wasn't even one. Just go in. Go up to it. Okay. I wasn't even one page into the comic. I knew this issue was in trouble.
It's not in trouble. It's fine. It's just got it's got a couple of issues.
Yeah. Well, and I mean,
what about the cover? What about the cover told you it was in trouble?
Superman is a cowboy.
I like that. That part's fine. I like that.
I'll be honest. If it wasn't for
jumped the super shark.
If it wasn't, I disagree. Time travel's a staple part of Superman's stories, going back to the Golden Age. You're not going to convince me that it's time travel.
This is literally
Superman's out of.
This is actually better than I read Superman Time After Time, and this is a way better way of executing this story than Time After Time. Time After Time is retarded.
I mean, honestly, like if this was okay, let's take a step back, right? One of our complaints that we've had was that because we're not sure where continuity is going, we as old readers feel a little lost, right? If you'd never read, if this is your first Superman comic and you know he's supposed to be a modern character, and you open this up and he's in the Old West, you're not putting this down, right? That's the thing about this. Like, I really believe that at least my hang up with this issue, my hesitancies are because I've been reading Superman for 30 years. If I hadn't been reading Superman for 30 years, and for at least 15 of those, I've been like, oh, what are you doing to Superman? If I hadn't been reading Superman for this long, I don't think I would have. If this had been my first comic and I'm picking it up and I'm like, Superman's in the Old West and there's a glowing cow lady? What's going on with this? I want to find out what's going on.
I completely concede that it is ridiculous to talk about jumping the shark in a superhero universe. But
no, you
this
can't.
particular story has been so self-contained to this one group of things up to this point. All of a sudden, time travel, cowboys, it's just like absolutely out of nowhere.
I think here's the elephant in the room. Okay, the elephant in the room here is and so let me give a general. So we're bouncing all over the place, but I'll give a general overview of the issue for anyone who's following along and is like, what the heck's going on? So the Kryptonite Claw, Mr. Graft, who's been one of our major arcing villains with his brother Dr. Farm, they've been experimenting on. You hate Lex Luthor. They've experimenting on Superman villains and other characters, including Marilyn Moonlight, who's a new addition to one of Williams. I do have to praise this about Williamson. Williamson is doing something that we've not seen in a while. He is putting a lot of new characters in the book he's writing, and I don't know. Like I've read some things that say that there were some creators who have held back on putting characters because they don't own them. And so I think that has changed a little bit at Marvel and DC. I think you do get some ownership stake. I know Bendis has ownership stake in characters he's made that may have encouraged people. But Williamson has not just made one character; he has put in, I mean, 4 or more. And so he doesn't seem to be afraid to just say, hey, I'm going to make up a bunch of new people and throw them in there and also use old people. So that's kind of nice. So Marilyn Moonlight that's our little cowgirl who's on the spectral horse over there. And Superman intervened when Mr. Graft was fighting her. And Mr. Graft used one of his kryptonite claws and zapped Marilyn Moonlight. And that somehow created a temporal thing that kicked her and Superman back in time. So that's the setup. It's not the first time Superman's been kicked back in time. It allows Superman to be a cowboy. Those things are okay with me. I think a lot of the issues that stem from this comic that are causing some of the problems that we're seeing here, including the it's not even anachronistic, it's the geography issues and such, is the fact that Williamson...
There's been a new word for how...
I know, yeah. Like, what do I do with that?
Time is bendable.
The problems stem from the fact that what Williamson is attempting to do in this issue is he's attempting to retcon, which is a tool that writers often use in superheroes and other speculative fiction storytelling. He's rewriting the past here. And what he's doing is he wants to take his new character and he wants to have that character be significant to the history of Metropolis itself. So he has this character who's kind of like a cowgirl motif, and he wants her to be important to the history of Metropolis. And we know this for a fact because later on in this very same issue, it is actually near the conclusion, but she basically says right out that she was like essentially the first superhero that Metropolis had back in the 1800s or so. She says, I was inspired to stand up for the oppressed and save lives. Eventually, I became known as the spirit of Metropolis, the original namesake of the city you call home. So essentially, this is supposed to be like the original Metropolis superhero that was been forgotten to the sands of time. And Williamson really, really wants to make this a significant plot point for this new character that he has created.
You know,
that's the destination that he's trying to hit. The problem is we have established multiple times as we've read this is that Williamson has really good ideas for the destinations he wants to take his readers to. But when he does that, there seems to be an increasing amount of sloppiness in terms of how he gets you to those points, which then creates these problems that you go, well, I'm fine with the destination you took me to, but the route you took, like, broke the car.
Testify. This guy. That's right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Cartoonicus. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just saying, like, it does make sense. And if you're talking about this guy suddenly trying to create this character and make them the single most important character in the entire history of Metropolis, that the fact that her name is Marilyn and Superman, if you shorten them, you get Mary Sue.
Oh dear.
Okay, the thing about it is she's not the single most important. That's not fair, right? She had her thing. She had her moment in time. She went away. That's it. It's not she's most important.
She's a ghost. Yeah, she's a ghost from the past. Yeah,
she's just the first. That's all it is. She's not supposed to be and she doesn't even seem that upset that everyone has forgotten about her. Right?
No, she was okay with being. She's like, I had a good life. I died, and then
I got the ending you don't get when you're in a hero. I got to die, with my children or surrounding me, my children, my grandchildren. So I got the happy ending that nobody's supposed to get.
It was nice that she didn't have the huge chip on her shoulder. She was like, I had a good life. It was good. It was like, oh wow, it was like a character like her. Normally you'd be like, I have this huge chip on my shoulder about how I was. She was like, no, it's good. I had a good life, and I was actually fine being dead too. Her big problem is the fact that, as you can see, she's part of the past, and somehow she's been brought back to the present. So she has more of a problem.
I am at least glad that she hasn't actually been around the entire 100 years, and for some reason we never saw her. I'll give you
No,
that.
that's a good point. Yeah. She was dead and forgotten, and then someone brought her back, and we find out in this issue who that is, because in the background of this whole comic, we see,
And once again, we were complaining about that an issue or two ago, and then suddenly it gets resolved. Seriously, they are watching this stream, guys.
Definitely not.
I will just say that I actually don't have a problem with this, because if I have to say it's my internal logic, it's just, this is the West, it's not Metropolis. The train is from Metropolis, and it's the Metropolis line or something like that. But the kids, those little tykes, are on their way to Metropolis, and she will move to Metropolis, where she becomes the Metropolis Marvel or whatever, but she's in the West right now, and later she goes east. I have no problem reconciling.
You can reconcile that. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Except that later we see Metropolis manifest right where they are standing.
And I talked about that.
We'll just ignore that for the
We're going to ignore that. Like, they'll re-retcon that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
It's
fixable. We see an ocean suddenly appear in the West. So it's just a change in space and time, because who knows how her time machine works, or
there you go.
It's actually his time machine. It's the bad guy's time. Let's get through the book so we can get to that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not able to talk. I'm not allowed to talk about the villain until we see him. So get to him.
Okay, all right. So they're stuck, and the big thing here is they detect that someone's been messing around with time, and is in addition to them, because someone's using laser pistols. So that's the mystery they got to solve. So
and like, I heard this and my ears perked up, because I'm like, there's no friggin' way. There's no friggin' way they're going to play this out this way, because I have a suspicion about who this might be. And I'm thinking, no, that's too hokey. They're not going to pull that. No way. But there's one question that this issue did not answer, that at least I missed it if it did, that the last issue hit on, was Superman was wanted for something, but I don't know what.
He robbed the train.
Did he rob the train?
Yeah, it was the train robbing. And he robbed. I think that part. Let me go back, because at the end of last issue, he says, "I'm robbing this here train."
Yeah, it says that. But
and he robbed the train of the evil, wicked grandmother, who has the two snot kids.
Okay, it's her train.
It's
Did I skip a week or something?
Yeah. How did I didn't catch that he was stealing them.
No, I think
this from a tie-in issue.
No. The implication here from later on in the issue is that the wicked grandmother is up to no good, and that Superman has been causing problems for her. Because later on, there's that one panel of the grandma, and you see the creation that got like one of the types of creations, and she's like a Midwest mad scientist. She's basically like from Wild Wild West. She's got the whole like spider tank from.
Okay.
And so, like, I think that Superman basically caused problems for that, and that's why that's why he's wanted.
Okay, did you just watch the Cinema Sins of Wild Wild West? Because I did today.
Oh,
okay. Is that why it's on your mind?
No, it's just
they just released it today. I'm just wondering if that's why.
I feel like we've skipped an entire issue here.
Oh, yeah,
well, you weren't here last week.
I was watching though.
Yeah,
we didn't talk about the old West stuff last week.
It's like that whole train robbery thing. Where is that? Because suddenly we're here, and
it was last issue. It was it was that tail end of last issue.
Right.
He says, "I'm robbing this here train," and then they kind of skip over. They glaze over a little bit.
And that's what I mean, is they skipped that part, and suddenly we're here. And what did he do with the lady and the two kids? I don't get that connection. Is why they did that. So you're showing the one from last time. Okay.
This is the end of last time. This is and what they have built here. This is what these two familiar looking children. What these two have built here is precious cargo. It will turn Metropolis into the city of tomorrow. And so they hire Nighthawk and send him in to protect whatever's in the cargo bay. And then Superman superheats their guns. And I'm robbing this your train, and that's the end of it. We don't ever, at least I didn't ever see what was.
I think Williamson's good about revisiting if it's super important, because he's been like teasing this out as we go, and the reveal that those two are who we like. spoiler, like if you look at those two, it's pretty clear who they're meant to be, but it hasn't been explicitly told yet that they are. So
I
I'm
didn't
thinking,
pick up on that at all. I couldn't tell that that's supposed to be Farm and Graft because
yeah. Williamson is, I think what Superman took from them, I think that's something that he's going to explain in in an issue or two.
So this scene happened after Superman came between Marilyn and Graft.
Correct.
Yes.
How did we completely skip over this?
We specifically didn't want to hit this part of the story last week. We
were waiting to hit this point.
So if you've been reading along,
exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
So in the hotel, I mean in the town, in this issue 10, and here's one of the things we've got this cowboy, this interesting, familiar looking cowboy who's spinning this crazy looking weapon around, and they're playing some sort of card game. It's a very stereotypical. He's got the angel eyes look on his face, and all that kind of goodness. But here's where it goes weird. Go on down to the next line after the squinty eyes, and these guys, they're at Bibbo's Saloon.
Oh gosh, that's
yeah.
funny.
What are you? Come on, Williamson. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And then
he's doing
guy,
member.
Oh shoot! I just picked these boots up in Gotham.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay. First of all, Gotham, you're not going to be buying. No cowboy is going to be buying cowboy boots in Gotham City in 1880. I mean,
right.
Come on, man.
This was him. He went. I can put all these Easter eggs in without. And again, he wasn't necessarily. And it's. There are different types of writers who have these ideas. I think it's Les Williamson's fault, and I'll tell you whose fault it is, because writers have ideas all the time. The fault here is going to be Gillian Grant and Paul Kaminsky, because that's Gillian Grant is the assistant editor who's listed first, and then the main editor is Paul Kaminsky, and those are the two that are supposed to go, hey, nice idea, Williamson, but hey, maybe we tweak that a little bit. I don't know, that Easter egg might be going a little too far for some people. Some of our continuity people probably won't like that particular one, or instead of that Easter egg, maybe do this one instead. Or hey, Metropolis and Gotham are not shanty towns in the Old West, so you're gonna have to like play we can make your ideas in general work, but we have to make these tweaks to them. That's an editor's job. I'm less blaming of Williamson here, but I think this panel knows that that the era of Jim Shooter-esque editors died.
Yeah,
like it's gone. We have not, I think, had anything like it, and so you don't have those people who go, wait a second, no.
Well, I mean, even if you look at the way Archie Goodwin dealt with James Robinson in Starman, or Denny's work, right? I mean, like, they knew that like their fans were continuity hawks, and they held them to them. But the person I really blame is Grant Morrison, who got away with being absolutely reckless with everything he wrote.
Yep.
and then I also blame all the fans that instead of like rightly tar and feathering that guy and writing that a town on a rail, they're like, oh, it's so innovative. He just respects us.
The question is, do we really even have editors anymore, or do we just have J.J. Abramses who stamp their name on something and say go for it?
Right.
I think they do a little proofreading. That's probably what editing is now. You just proofread a little.
I mean, man, talk about a cushy job.
Yeah.
Well,
Gone are the days of E. Nelson Bridwell, who knew all the moons of Krypton off the top of his head. Could just tell it to you. Could tell you all the history and everything. Yeah. That's all gone. Because somebody should have said, if you want it to be 1880s Metropolis, you could also do that. Because they had horses in the streets and stuff, but it was more urban than the Wild West. Or you're going to have to set it in the Wild West and not do all these Metropolis Gotham references.
Yeah.
And instead they they have both, and it doesn't make sense.
I mean, again, the problem stems. The real problem, like I said, the elephant in the room is Marilyn Moonlight, because Williamson created this character who is very clearly a Wild West character. She rides a horse. She's got her spectral 6, shot revolver guns. Like, she's very clearly we call it coded. She's clearly you see her and you're supposed to think, oh, that's a Wild West trope character, which is fine.
Well,
the problem is that
in perfect fairness, I mean, like, the idea that Marilyn Moonlight is a black woman, right, who has become the hero of a town, right? That actually happened to black women in the West, and it did not happen to black women in the East. True, right? I'm all for, like, acknowledging the actual history of black cowboys that are out there. We don't talk enough about the fact that there were farmers, ranchers, cowboys that were freed slaves, that were making their own way in the West, just like the immigrants who are coming over here on boats, and they had, and we don't talk about that. But it's a real fact of history, and largely that got washed away with the Depression. All those guys had to sell steaks at that time, but the fact of the matter is that, like, that's a real fact of history. And so the fact that they're taking an opportunity to have that kind of a character and reflect on that real history, I really appreciate. The problem. Okay, and you guys all know me. You guys have talked with me for years. You know that I have a great disrespect for anything east of the Mississippi River, the Missouri River. Even I'm not even a fan of East Nebraska. So,
hey, I live in North Carolina.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just fighting words.
He tolerates you.
I'm just fighting words. No, okay. So here's the problem.
I'm just saying, part of my expression, my take on it, may also be that kind of localized bias.
That's fine. Here's the problem, though. The problem is wanting to have your cake and eat it too. The problem is that he's I have this cool cowboy character. That's fine. Cowboy characters are great. Need more of them. That's fine. The problem is he goes, I want my cowboy character to be essential to the history of Metropolis. See, if he'd made her essential to a Midwestern town that he made up, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all.
Well, or even he could even have done what Robinson did with Scalp Hunter, where he really loved the Scalp Hunter character, and so and he wanted to tie it into Opal City, which is a more eastern town. And so what he did was the Scalp Hunter, went out east and just kind of liked it and stayed. So he was this one Western character in a town full of Eastern dandies, and
because people move. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
people move. Yeah.
Okay, so either of those work. What doesn't work is wanting to be like, no, I want this Western stuff, but also I want to. It's just he's trying. It really is having your cake and eating it too.
Well,
that being said, I still really like the sequence.
Sure. And we need to get into, and we'll let Hutch in a second talk about our guy at the table here. But Kurtunica, sorry, you were jumping in.
I was just going to say that as you say that, it hits me. I'm remembering, what was his name? Ken Penders with the Archie Sonic comic, and how he took his space, alien Indian characters he wanted to write a story about, and he couldn't. So instead he imparted that onto the echidnas. And it's almost like, okay, I want to write this story about a cool cowgirl ghost character, but I can't seem to do it, so I'll insert it into a Superman story.
So the only thing I'll critique about that is the fact that I've had people essentially tell me that Ken Pender's rendition of the echidnas is the reason why they read Sonic comics. So, like, even though he's crazy and off his rocker in a lot of ways, he brought some of the best material to that series. Here, it's kind of like we have longtime readers going, huh? And having to kind of like create their own mental canon to like reconcile what's.
But that still just makes me right. I mean, it feels like he's just inserting this thing into where it doesn't belong because that's all he can do.
Well, and
I think it's because
like, it's like, this is what I really wanted to write about, but instead I'll settle for what I can take.
He really wants the cowboy character. So, it's fine. It's hard. He needed to, editor needed to tweak this.
And the real thing is when we get to the guy at the table, the inclusion of another cowboy character actually makes some level of sense because of this guy. But before we get into that, I want to hit something from Fizz. I noticed was in the chat. I don't know if you still are out there. Thanks for tuning in. But he says, I think Jonah Hex is the oldest superhero in the DC universe. That would be Brother Jonathan, an early incarnation of the spirit of Uncle Sam. So I think he's probably an older superhero. Of course, then you got some of the New Gods characters that are technically older too.
Oh boy.
But
yeah, I was gonna say if we're gonna play that, this is America's oldest superhero.
Yeah. America.
Because like technically, like if you want to go, like this is Wonder Woman goes into ancient Greece and blah blah blah. You know.
Yeah. Max Mercury did time jump a bunch of times, so I have no idea how old he is, but he's from the 1800s or something like that. So
yeah. He would have been, I think, contemporary with
the oldest one is Superman because he was published in 1938.
He also makes a good point here. Where's Jonah Hex in all this?
Oh, he's on the other side of the Mississippi River.
Yeah. This character here is Terra Man, and that's a name that since the Superman was revamped in '86, they had given it to a character who had nothing to do with cowboys at all, and then they kind of brought that guy back. And he kind of had a cowboy motif for no reason. Just he had a robot horse he's flying around on, and then Black Adam rips him in half. And this was like in '52. It was like he had all of 2 panels of existence, and he's gone. But Terra Man was also, without being called that, was featured in the animated series more like this, where he just has a tricky 6-gun type thing, and he has a robot horse. But we do see in a few panels that Superman sees him and reflects back to what is basically pre-crisis stories. And I have somewhere the first Terra Man comic. I own that one.
Oh, cool.
Terra Man, just the thing that bothers me about, I like all this. The take on his personality is more from the animated series, but his portrayal is pretty accurate. He uses wild 6-guns that are high tech, and he has various things that have a Western motif. And
apart from the flying horse,
his origin was that his dad was killed by an alien on a flying saucer, who then felt bad about having killed the guy and left the kid. So he takes the kid up and he raises him as a outlaw cowboy in outer space, because he read the dad's mind and says that's how he wants this kid to be raised, so I'll raise him that way. And he gives him like chewing tobacco that casts illusions and all kinds of sort of stuff. Anything that's got a Western motif, he's got that. And then Terra Man, having been given a little sign by his dad that the alien was his killer, grew up and killed the alien, and then he just got a horse that flies through space with wings. So he's got a Pegasus that flies through space. And amazing. We don't see that here. He's got a robot again, but
they do a flashback.
Yeah. But so the thing that I'm missing here is that this is great for somebody with my 53-year-old level of memory. That I remember Terra Man, and this is the way I like him. He's really good. But for anybody younger than that, who is this guy?
And that would be me here.
That is where you need to have. And this goes back to the editor thing. You need to have the editor say, hey, let's spend a page where you say, oh yeah, Terra Man, and because you're able to pull from pre-crisis if you want to, whatever Superman remembers, and says, I remember this guy.
I first saw Terra Man.
I need to interject one more. I got to interject one
thing.
Ahead. I think Williamson is doing something here, and I don't know if it addresses your concern.
Something.
But okay, he's clearly doing the past is either echoed in the present or has direct ramification on the present. That coloring. If you look at Terra Man does not necessarily have that exact coloring. So that coloring, we know what that's code for.
That's Luthor?
That's Luthor coding. So I don't know if this is meant to be Williamson retconning it so that this guy has a connection to Lex, but that coloring is more than suspicious.
Yeah.
It is typical supervillain, secondary colors.
I was gonna say, you sure it's not just the green purple is always
But Williamson has purposely put Lex in those colors in this comic.
True.
Yeah.
Multiple times, and like that's not coincidental. And so I don't know, that I could be wrong, but
so, like,
that's
my first exposure to Terra. Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility there, man. My first exposure to Terra Man was in the my cousin had a bunch of dime comics, of yard sale comics, right? And so I was flipping through them, and I was so confused about why this guy was involved in a Superman comic, and I couldn't really understand it, and why they were calling him Terra Man. And it wasn't until my mid-20s that I realized his origin story, and that he was called Terra Man because the alien that raised him that was calling him an Earthman, and he was just out of his. So he didn't, because I was trying to think about why the cowboy had anything to do with terror. I couldn't understand.
I mean, honestly, because that was the thing that was bugging me, is that I feel like somebody missed an opportunity to make him a Minotaur and call him Terrible.
Very funny. Well, see, the interesting thing to Rhys, right, and Hutch, you know this character. I think I've seen the cartoon version, but I didn't put the pieces together. I'm not familiar with this guy, but I believe that because of the word Terra, I think when they remade this character, I think they made him a mercenary who had Earth associated powers at some point. And so they tried to actually work that in. Terra, Earth, let's give him weapons that have an Earth theme, or earthquake guns or something. So like they went that route. So this is basically a return to Silver Age form.
Which is why when I saw the character, I was just like, there's no way, because he was like one of the characters that got left on the cutting room floor after Man of Steel, the series. They were just like, he's too goofy. He'll never fit in. We can't find any way to make it work. And they just left him behind.
He's
back. And I didn't even mind that at the time. But so I saw him pop it up here with his spinning six gun. I was just like, man, what are we in for?
And the green poncho is his original design from the 70s.
I know that it's mostly
the purple.
It's mostly the purple is not there. And when it's the green and the purple, and you even look at the design on the bodysuit like that. That's like Lex has worn that shirt. Mm-hmm. That's what I it could be coincidence, but it's such a strong coding, and because Williamson's done it with other characters and be like, oh, this character from the past has a connection in the future, and he's trying to kind of like create this past present thing. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's too on the nose to not be something.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something there. But scroll down a little bit here past this scene where he straight up kills that guy, which is amazing. An absolutely like great like spaghetti western scene. I love that. But down past where Superman shows up, and he's, in case you don't know who this is, he says, "Hey, it's Terra Man," in that great playbill font that I thought that was so cool.
Oh, you're right. That's cool. Now it's a nice lettering touch. I like that.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought that was, you're done terrorizing this town, Terra Man. I thought that was just great. And so then there's this little back and forth, and the old woman gets mad because you were supposed to keep the Superman away from me because he's been terrorizing me. And then they have this scene and I'm sure that this is a redrawing of a cover I have seen. It's on the next page there. Where you go back to the Silver Age thing. I am certain that is.
I actually sent you the link.
Oh, did you? Okay, I'll look at that.
Yeah.
Here. I don't know if it's exactly this one, but it's definitely meant to evoke this. So I think it's basically from like a similar pose, but from a different camera angle. Yeah. I will say this page again demonstrates that there's aspects of Bruno Redondo. And apparently there's another artist here, Caio Filipe. And I think it's Redondo for most of it. But I don't know.
I'm gonna share that thing you sent over, because that is really sharp and fun.
Well, so before you do, I just wanted to touch that some of these pages look really heavily 3D 3D model referenced, and
especially the backgrounds.
Yeah, there's just, I don't know. There's something in some of the previous artists when there's just, I don't know, the pages just jumped at me better. His figures and how he draws Superman in some panels is really good. It's on model. It's powerful stuff. I think that's why he got the gig. But he needs to, he needs to step up his game in terms of some of what his layouts are good, but some of the other aspects of the comic book page, it's not as dynamic as it should be. So that's my art complaint.
So yeah, this is that cover this is the cover that I was thinking of. So you look at that, and then you look at this, and I think is supposed to key into that very cover. So
well, it might be his only reference. What does Terraman look like? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
He's out there. You can find him. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. Well, we had somebody singing the alphabet song in our chat. Well, that's fun. Hey, anyway, thank you for coming along. But yeah, so this actually shows that the yellow shirt, the green poncho, all that kind of stuff. And the other fun thing is he says, they're accosted him about what you're doing here, and this is a great little this line of dialogue here, and then this panel too. I thought I was coming back here to just enjoy myself for a bit without anyone finding out. I mean, think about how much that tells you, right? That they know that he knows Superman from the future. Mm-hmm. He's went back in time to live life, outside of. I mean, obviously, right? So he's no longer a renowned villain. He's got this high technology that puts him way above everybody in the Old West, mm-hmm. and Superman's response is, "You killed people. Obviously, I'm going to find you." Right?
Yeah. It isn't even, it's like just so casually mentioned that he has a time machine somehow.
Yeah.
That wasn't something he had before that, we know about, but of course, who knows what the history is. But, it's kind of cool that he didn't get to live in the Old West. He was a little kid in the Old West, and this alien took him away. And because of, Einsteinian physics, by the time they got back from their space adventure, he's in modern times of Superman. So it kind of like, it makes sense that he might want to go back to the Old West. Whereas in the animated series, he was a character from the Old West who was given all this future tech and was making the most of it. So, this is kind of,
it's on brand. It's on brand.
It's very on brand, and it seems like a good, why not just go back to a time where Superman isn't there to bother you, and you can be, Lord and Master because you got all this future tech. I like it. I like that outcome, and Superman just like, no, I gotcha.
Right. So they go from here. He brings up, this town ain't big enough for the two of us routine. There's the showdown at high noon, and all this kind of stuff. And it's, of course,
and there you can see his real outfit that looks kind of like a Legion outfit,
Yeah. So Terraman's ready to slap leather. Let me see if I can't find this thing here. Stop that screen. We'll present because I've got it over here. No, not that. Come on, share screen. Window. Boom. Okay, so this is actually a 2-page spread that's split up for this PDF, right? So, here's Terraman. He's all then on the other side of the thing. Where's your gun? I don't need one. Which I thought was hilarious in its own context because you've got this Superman thing going on here. But beyond that, it's funny just because Twitless had an epic Twitter thread like 2 weeks ago about the idea that superheroes don't need guns. And so I thought this was particularly fitting given our own context.
Superheroes were kind of... They're a gun-free power fantasy. It's the general idea of them, with a few exceptions.
Yeah. So anyway, and of course, here Superman is not getting blown to bits, right?
Of course.
I don't know what Terraman was expecting, really. I mean, he knew that Superman was depowered a bit, but he looks a little too surprised that he survived the shots. So, yeah.
I do like. Okay, I will say that I'm not the biggest fan of some of the art, but whoever did the bottom right panel was I like that one.
Oh, that's I love.
That's a good panel. I like that. So we still have good panels here. I just
The
I don't know
bang, bang? That one?
yeah. That's
Oh,
great.
Yeah,
It's
it's
Okay.
so stark, and you can hear the panel, and I mean, it's this great break from the flow. It really
very
drives.
stylized. I
It
like
looks
it.
like
so-
something you would have as a poster.
That's what I'm saying, and that's what made it
heck
cool.
yeah.
It was
I
it was
want that as a
basically
T-shirt.
it was
Um,
like an album cover.
But on top of that, it also because it fits in but doesn't fit in with the rest of the page, it accentuates that moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially because he's supposed to have these bullets that can't that can move around. They're self-guiding bullets, and
He's
so
got he's got Judge Dredd bullets.
Judge Dredd bullets. So he's got so that really ups the terror level, right, of the whole thing. You get Superman having to save everybody from that whole business.
So let's not show too much of the pages here for copyright. But Marilyn Moonlight steps in because she's obviously still part of this adventure, and she helps Superman there make the final catch. And then that's when she kind of spills the beans on her connection to the past of Metropolis, and then her connection to Grandma, mad scientist, who's clearly the grandmother of our Dr. Farr, Mr. Graft, when they were snot-nosed kids. So there's still some things to reconcile. Marilyn Monroe she was happy to be a ghost. She had a good life, but someone brought her back to life.
Mm-hmm.
Brought her back to unlife, because they brought her back to being a ghost in Metropolis who shows up at night. That's kind of where that plot line resolves. They get Terraman's time machine. Actually, there's one thing I do want to mention. I liked this. Williamson did a decent job with Superman's morality in this issue, because Superman catches Terraman with Marilyn Moonlight's assistance, and the way he decides to punish Terraman is he locks him up in the jail of the Old West, and then says, I'm going to have somebody, one of my, time traveling connections, when we get back to the present, I'm going to have them pick him up. But he says it's important that the people of this timeline see that he is put in a jail here for his crimes that he committed here. So even if it's only for a short amount of time before the real time cops show up and fix things, people needed to see that justice was done in their time. And I'm like, I like that. I like that position that Superman had.
I'll just have to hope that means that the town folk end up hanging him before the other guys get there.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Is he killed 12 men and a whole bunch of children and women? They would hang him. They wouldn't.
They'd lynch the crap out of him.
Put him in jail.
Judges here on Tuesdays.
What so annoys me about Superman?
No, I know, but he did a good job there too. I think, because he was like, okay, he has a very pro-life mentality. You can disagree with that, but it's he has a jail is where bad guys go, but he was like, I'm not just going to take him to my jail. He's like, I am going to take him to my jail, but first it needs to be seen that he went to theirs, and I liked that he would consider that. That he would think about the thoughts and feelings of people who would want justice there, and at least be like, hey, we're locking him up. Now, yeah, in the Wild West, there would clearly be a posse.
Anyway,
not even a posse. I mean, that would be the justice
they
would
would
deal for somebody who killed
Right.
20-some people.
Right, but that's why the time cops he'll send out, Booster Gold or whoever he sends here in a bit, is going to come and just put him in.
Can you just
time prison.
conveniently forget to send them,
Yeah.
please? Anyway, I do want to bring this an image back up for a second here, because several times they show this character in the background. I've got it up here, and I can't be the only one thinking this, can I?
Thinking what?
That this is a young Marilyn.
Yeah,
Well,
they actually
that.
specifically
They say that on the next
They
page.
say that next page. Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Superman says, "Did you just inspire yourself to be a superhero?"
Oh.
And she's like, "Yes."
There we go. Yeah.
And I do need to point out that Superman is carrying the suitcase and says it's the thing that he stole from those two tykes, and it's going to help him in the future. So yeah, there is more to that. Is what he stole from the train.
Mhm.
I kind of missed that. That's so he did steal something from the train. It is something he stole from those two tykes. The old lady says so, and he says, "I'm going to take this back, and this is something we're going to find useful in the future." And we have to find out next issue what it is.
I hope when we find out, because I'm not the biggest fan of Cowboy Superman robbing a train, so I hope that it was like you had weapons, you had like a bomb, and so what I stole was basically you shouldn't have had in the first place.
Right.
I'm assuming that's basically the case because of Mad Scientist Grandma and seeing what she tends to have. So like I think that's how it'll resolve.
I mean, I am hoping that what they did here has some kind of ramification in the future, or else this entire issue was one massive filler issue.
It was no, it's
Okay?
too
They were just gone for 5 seconds, back in Metropolis.
It's too connected to the lore for it to not have. It's connected to Marilyn Moonlight. I think it's connected to Lex because of Terra Man. It's definitely connected to Farm and Graft. It's not just a filler. It's more than that.
What I can't help wondering is if Marilyn will ultimately end up being the one, without too many spoilers, that she then refers to that she's hunting down.
She brought herself back from the dead.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear. It's probably
They would have to time travel one more time, but
it's probably. Honestly, it's Farm and Graft. We know it's Farm and Graft. They are the ones who have the history with her. So
or is that what they want you to think?
They're the
They both she and Farm or Graft and she concede that in the fight in the last issue.
Like I'm pretty sure it's them. Unless I'm missing something, I'm almost positive.
It would be really interesting if it ends up being this big loop and she ended up turning herself into the superhero she became.
But that is kind of what happens here.
I gotta say, I kind of hate the predestination paradox. So
I like it in Terminator. Works really well there.
I've never seen Terminator. So.
It's the only way I've ever been able to appreciate.
You've never seen Terminator?
What?
Nope.
Yeah, I know what.
Never seen.
I've
Terminator.
seen the last 2 minutes.
I saw
of it
T2,
right
but
now.
I didn't see the first.
Okay,
Terminator.
you said okay. T2 is like is the better. I mean, Terminator is good. Terminator 2 is like a perfect film.
Well, and so frame this right. So Terminator was an R-rated movie that came out in '84 when I was like 6, so I didn't see that.
Uh-huh.
And then T2 was a PG-13 movie that they edited for television that I saw in junior high. So
Gotcha.
It was. I thought that was rated R as well.
maybe it was, but
I didn't see either till I was 20.
The edited version would have been cut down for
yeah, it would have been. It was
Fun
barely.
for TV,
It was
yeah.
like So
But anyway, as far as the rest of the issue here, they travel back to the future. We have that little transition, which is giving us hysterics. We don't have to show it, but yeah, they go from the west to Metropolis, and then Superman flies off, gets a kitten out of a tree, literally, and then he decides to go to the Superman building and is confronted by the Lex Luthor Revenge Squad, which is Dr. Farm, Dr. or Mr. Graft, whatever the names are, and the chained guy, and then somebody who is in Lex Luthor's armor but with a hidden face. And since it's the Lex Luthor Revenge Squad, we don't know who it is in his armor.
Yeah.
It's gonna be his mom.
Probably.
because
Yeah.
it's not his daughter. Because his daughter tries to tell Superman to not show up.
Right.
Yeah. And it actually does look like a feminine figure in the picture.
I hadn't really thought about it, but it might be.
Just a little bit feminine in the hips, and although it's armor,
It's
so
armor,
why wouldn't it be?
yeah,
You know,
right,
it's-
right.
yeah. But you can't avoid it. It is kind of a skinnier, not Lex Luthor.
Yep.
Well, I suppose he makes armor that is form fitting. He's Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
It'll adapt to whoever gets in it.
So
Something I
next
thought
week-
was interesting about
Okay.
the art I wanted to bring up in here when he's doing this whole thing. Now, am I crazy, or is this an older looking costume that he has been wearing? Has he not been wearing a more modernized costume somehow until now?
No, I'm pretty sure they have him back in his.
Huh, that's weird. Somehow, then it has just been clearly purposefully made to kind of like feel that old-fashioned classic Superman.
Part of it's
And
the
it's
power.
very interesting that they do that. They kind of even have like the old Superman doing his classic things just after he says, the past is a nice place, but I wouldn't want to live there.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah,
part of it's the palette
yeah.
on that page because it's a very, very light palette.
Yeah.
But Superman has been in his classic getup again for the duration of this series.
But like I feel like it was you remember we've talked about from the beginning. This was had been
No, the
was
I
a love
agree.
letter to the 60s and
There's a little bit of a wink of a meta commentary there.
right.
Williamson's smart enough to know that was on purpose. Yeah.
But this is where the whole problem of this is where they really could have saved the whole issue of where the heck Metropolis is. The second he goes back into the future, he doesn't go back to Metropolis. He flies around the world for 2 pages. They didn't need to actually have the future be in the same place as the past. He could have just flown back to Metropolis.
Right.
Well, again, that goes back to Williamson wanted Marilyn Moonlight to be a part. She's the original spirit of Metropolis. That's Williamson's destination, and he warped everything to make the destination happen.
It's been a fun trip,
All right.
but I don't know that I'll take it again. No. But yeah, no. That's fun. Next week is number 11. So if you guys are following along at home, that means we are up to date with current releases. And we won't be doing another one of these for like a month. So,
or however long it takes to get to issue 12.
Chapter 11, Twitless.
Chapter 11. I am hoping, I'm thinking maybe that we'll look at a Comics Creators Club, but I don't know that we can throw it together enough time. So our backup is going to be part 2 of our discussion of public domain and use in comics, and specifically highlighting the Oz Wonderland War. That'll be required reading, maybe in 2 weeks. Yeah, okay. Colin, for sure. You are one of the two.
I really wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, Colin says invite me on. Yeah, you are invited on. When next Comics Creators Club, I want you there. So, I will I'll message you details on that in the next couple weeks or next week or whatever. I just finished a huge job at my office that has been taking up a lot of my time the last couple weeks. So, if everything's according to plan, then that's great. So I will have a little bit of time to take care of some of that stuff this weekend. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to say my concluding thought. I'm still enjoying this series. It's I'm still having fun with it, and it's still, I think, a worthwhile purchase at your local comic book shop. Next time I'm there, I'm going to catch up with all the. I'm enjoying reading Superman again, which is cool. And this series is definitely made for fans of the character. The problems, you know what? I have to just mention this last thing. Isn't it nice to have, as the point of contention, little plot details and contradictions, as opposed to, I can't stand how they've ruined this character's morality, ethics. They've completely. Do you remember how we used to have these kinds of like quibbles, like,
yeah,
and it goes back to classic comics, because back in the golden and silver age, they made mistakes like this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was like it's a breath of fresh air to be like, I've got a bone to pick with you, Williamson, and it's like, you have that moment of like deep breath. Oh no, what is it? And it's like continuity. I'm having some continuity problems. And there's so many comics where I pick them up and I'm like, and when I put them down, it's such a ruination of storytelling that
I'm 100% with you on that, because I just finished a complete read through of everything Inferior 5, right?
Yeah.
And which meant I read the Phil Foglio Angel and the Ape series last weekend.
Wonderful.
It's so good. It's so good. I mean, everything about it is great. The jokes are good. The retcons are great. Everything's great. I love it. And then I finished it up, and I decided to read. I was up late one night, and I was needing to stay awake, so I decided to go ahead and read the because I have the Angel and the Ape Power Chaikin mini, which is absolute garbage.
Horrible.
It's just trash. The and I'm just like
Angel and the what?
Angel and the Ape.
Okay.
Which was it was like a Scooby-Doo type story where there's a semi-talking monkey who is a model and a model attractive platinum blonde.
Chaikin did it at some point.
Well, Chaikin did a Vertigo mini series.
Okay,
it's horrible.
We're talking about American Flag Chaikin, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That would be a
and so the original series was Bridwell, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah,
I loved Phil Folio's take on it. It was great.
Yeah, Phil Folio's take is really good.
Chaikin probably would have made it into a big deconstruction.
I had the thing laying here. I had that whole miniseries laying right here for months, and I just filed it. And you bring it up. I just for crying out loud.
All right, sorry. Didn't want to derail things. I just wanted to say that there have been comics I've read, specifically the ones I remember in recent memory. There were some Bendis comics that almost killed my love of reading comics. They're so bad. And it was like I'm reading Williamson, and I'm like, well, I have problems, but I'm like, these are good problems for me to have because I've read stuff that's so atrocious. In recent memory. So anyway, even when I have problems, it's like classic superhero comic book problems that I have. So thank you for that, Miss Josh Williamson's, for that alone. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, I keep seeing these little things that I'm annoyed with, but I keep really enjoying this comic despite it myself. Right.
Yeah. He's building a world. He's doing what good comic book writers do, which is he's not just reusing the same old superhero stuff, Superman stuff all over again. He's doing his takes on the villains. He's building his own little self-contained world, kind of. And we may have problems with it with this whole Western thing, but he is taking charge of it. And like you say, kind of creating his own characters rather than just doing the same old. Here's prankster again, the kind of thing. So
here's what I'll say, Williamson. Here's what you need to do, since we definitely know you watch our show.
Definitely.
What you need to do is next time you have some time, get yourself a roadster, get yourself an RV, whatever. Come on out here to the Old West. It's still out here. Travel around, eat at some greasy spoons, meet some rednecks. Just get out here and amongst us uncivilized sand people, and see what it's really about, and realize that Metropolis could never come from this place. So,
and actually, do you know where he's from? Do you know where he's from? He's from Portland, Oregon.
So it's actually not that far.
I was going to say, yeah. So it's
a day's drive, man. Come on.
He's West Coast.
Come on east.
And if I get to chapter 12 and I see Superman and Marilyn Saiyan fuse into a character called Mary Sue, I'm calling you out on it.
Okay. All right. I think. Jesus.
That's a show. Folks.
That's a show. Yeah.
Can I just plug my channel very quick? I am doing a reaction video to a 1973 Super Friends episode. I'm going to have that up this week. So please subscribe to my channel and watch for that. The Super Friends predict Google AI. That's the short of it. It's amazing. So, okay. I will have that up in days.
So. Next week, Superman number 11, Legacy number, I don't know, 1,000 something other. And the week after that, we're going to get our Oz on. So be ready for that. Public domain superheroes, and at one time they were done really, really well. And we will catch you all next time around. Get out there, read some comics. I will be doing a review probably this weekend on the first volume of the 2000s Manhunter series as well. And I got some things to say about that one. So anyway, check it all out. We will have the rest. We'll have Superman next week. That's it. Go. Get out of here. Read comics. Go. Bye.
Yep.
Oh, come on. Off button.